some discussion. You might have seen this discussion triggered in the Dáil this week. It was triggered by a question raised by the Dublin TD Duncan Smith, and it was on foot of some of his Labour Party colleagues, as he worded it himself, asking the Junior Minister for Sport, Jack Chambers, a series of questions. Well, actually what happened was they actually asked him the same question, but asked him about 3 different ways to try and elicit some sort of a response. Broadly, the question was about how the government planned to support the idea of equal pay for women's sport in Ireland. So 776 words of a response later from the Junior Minister for Sport, and I was still left a little bit wondering exactly what his stance was, or what the government's approach to the idea of equal pay for women in Ireland was, or indeed what even was the plan of attack. So I picked through all that. There was a lot of chat about a programme for participation that was set up in 2005, which he himself was a little bit off Dáil Éireann at that point, Jack Chambers. He was only 14, but no problem to mention something that came up 15 years ago. He spoke about being an enthusiastic supporter of the 20 by 20 campaign. He wanted to encourage sports bodies to consider on the actions of other countries who've moved to pay parity. So consider your actions was another key action out of this. Interestingly, he said that he respects the autonomy of sports associations and how payments to international players was a matter for that association themselves. And he went on, as he said himself, went on to say that, as is the selection of teams, which I'm sure this morning was great consolation to Stephen Kenny and to Andy Farrell and beyond as well. And he called out male players for not showing enough support for their female counterparts. So you can get a bit of a sense, hopefully, from that as to where Jack Chambers was coming from in his response to this. So it did, as I said, pique my interest during the week, and I had a few questions of my own just arising off the back of it, and we probably will try to reach out to Jack Chambers, see if he'd come on and have a chat to us about this, because it's such an interesting topic that deserves conversation, that would benefit from the conversation being moved on, which, having read Jack Chambers' 776 words, I wasn't 100% sure exactly where we were headed with the whole thing. So I had some questions which were that, you know, he was asked about the FAI and you know, their own position, but I would wonder why he doesn't also use his own position to have those conversations with the IRFU, with the GEA, the LGFA, the Camogie Association and beyond. The FAI are a little bit of a soft target at the minute, and I did wonder why he couldn't, for example, scroll back to our own conversation with Darren O'Sullivan down in Cork about 16 months ago at our roadshow down there at that time, where she brought up about the inequality of expenses, and he could throw his enthusiastic support home behind a notion like that, I would suspect. But if he jumps up on the Off the Ball YouTube page, he will find those comments, and I recommend that he does. And so I wonder, the question there is, could he also approach the other sporting bodies with that enthusiastic support? I wondered about whose expert input and opinion that he's canvassed on the issue of inequality for female sport in the areas of pay and beyond. I think that we'd have to accept that he's not long in his job, and not to be expected, I don't think, to be an expert in that area just yet, but I wondered who he'd pulled in who does know about how that field can be levelled. When he says that Minister Martin and himself have had discussions to support the 20 by 20 initiative, I would ask what, when and with who were those supportive discussions, and what the outcomes were, and indeed what the plan is in relation to that 20 by 20 movement. In his statement, he says the promotion of women's sport is a policy priority for the government. And the question here was in English, what does that mean? What actually is the action out of that, and what in practical terms is he going to do? And finally, and probably the key question in all of this on would be, when he talks about the autonomy of associations, and I wondered about whether the government and the minister and the junior minister actually have authority here to make stipulations to their own funding of those associations. So when he says something, for example, like, and I quote, "We do not have a specific role in determining the level of payments for international teams selected by this or any other national governing body." Why not? I don't understand that at all. The 800 grand a year that's given over to the FAI on top of the interest-free loans, obviously, and the other recent top-up packages, the many hundreds of thousands of euro to the RFU and to the GEA, to the LGFA, the Camogie Association, the many other sporting bodies. Beyond that, make even a phased approach to equal pay and a contract, make it a contracted condition of funding. So I would appeal to the junior minister to consider those questions this morning. Some of the stuff he's saying I clearly don't buy, but there are questions to be answered there. Move beyond the highlighting of the issues, move beyond the enthusiastic support, the many things to consider, as he said himself. Move beyond thanking the deputy for raising the question. and the several plans to engage move beyond the words and see the deeds, Owen, is what I'm asking the Junior Minister for Sport, Jack Chambers, this morning.